Hi guys, welcome to my channel Sakura Starlight. In this video we take a look at 10 of the best scariest PS1 horror games. This is a nostalgic trip down memory as we go back to the PlayStation 1 era and take a look at horror games had to offer if you want to suggest me videos like this one, you can do so on my email in the description. This video will contain spoilers. With that said, let's begin. The best game is Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is a 1998 action role-playing horror video game with survival horror elements, developed and published by Square. From Squaresoft, developers of my favorite games Final Fantasy series. The game is a sequel to a popular Japanese original novel Parasite Eve, written by Hideaki Senna, and was a part of the J-horror phenomena along with other fiction such as Ring. It is also the first game in the Parasite Eve video game series. The story follows New York City police officer Aya Brea over a 6-day span in 1997 as she attempts to stop the Eve, a woman who plans to destroy the human race through spontaneous human combustion. Players explore levels set in areas of New York while utilizing a pausable real-time combat system. Parasite Eve was Squaresoft's first M-rated game, and the first major American and Japanese game development collaboration for the company. Parasite Eve received positive reviews. Critics praised the graphics and gameplay, but found the overall game too linear and with little replay potential. The video game adaptation was part of a resurgence of popularity in Japanese horror sparked by the original book, and was released alongside a film adaptation and 2 manga comics, one based on the book, the other on the video game. The original title was also followed by 2 video game sequels, Parasite Eve 2 in 1999 and The Third Birthday in 2010, and was re-released on the PlayStation Network in 2010. The first 2 games, Parasite Eve and Parasite Eve 2, had shipped over 3 million copies worldwide by 2010. The player takes on the role of Aya Brea, an NYPD rookie, attending an opera at Carnegie Hall with a blind date in New York City on Christmas Eve 1997. During the opera, everyone in the building spontaneously combusts, except for Aya, her date, and an actress on stage named Melissa Pierce. Aya confronts Melissa on stage, and Melissa says that Aya's mitochondria need more time to develop. She flees backstage, with Aya giving chase. Backstage, Melissa then mutates into a beast and flees into the sewers, declaring that her name is now Eve. The next day, on Christmas, Aya and her partner, Daniel Dollies, go to see a scientist at the Museum of Natural History named Dr. Hans Klamp. He teaches the protagonists about mitochondria, but they do not find his information useful since it does not explain the previous night's events. Previous night's events happens due to a parasite known as Chondri Condor which infected Melissa's kidney and took hold of her body. Chris' demonic new host to control. To explore Manhattan confronting waves of the city's infected inhabitants, you have now transformed into terrifying monsters. Parasite Eve mixed turn-based action game, played with some horrifying sights and sounds to create a creepy journey into a monster-infested city. Parasite Eve received generally favorable reviews. It's led to release of a superior action-based sequel several years later. However, for many people the original Parasite Eve is one of PlayStation's most beloved horror games, and a manga adaptation based upon the video game universe called Parasite Eve Diva. In 2020, British rock band Bring Me the Horizon released a song called Parasite Eve, stating it was directly inspired by the game. While Clarion may look like a sci-fi take on the Resident Evil formula, it changes things up in a big way by focusing on the use of psychic powers over gunplay. The game was sometimes compared to the Resident Evil series, though GamePro said that Parasite Eve had deeper gameplay with multiple weapon upgrades and hidden areas to discover. The novel's original author Hideaki Senna approved of the game, stating that he was actually impressed how well the game makers translated the novel. In 2000, the game was ranked number 16 by the readers of Famitsu magazine in its top 100 PlayStation games of all time. In 2010, Games Radar chose it as one of the top 7 90s games that need HD remakes. In February 2011, Parasite Eve was announced to arrive on the North American PlayStation Network. It was released on March 15, 2011. Echo Night is a trilogy of Japanese adventure games developed by From Software. The original Echo Night was first released in 1998 for the PlayStation. 2 sequels were developed: Echo Night 2, The Lord of Nightmares for the PlayStation in Japan in 1999, and Echo Night Beyond for the PlayStation 2, which released worldwide between 2004 and 2006. All the titles feature a protagonist called Richard Osmond pursuing a magical artifact and interacting with ghosts. Titles are played from a first-person perspective, and place a focus on puzzles and exploration. The original Echo Night began as an experimental title based on the realistic graphics created for King's Field 3. The second game was created around a theme of quiet horror. Echo Night Beyond was developed by a staff of around 70 people. All 3 titles were produced by series creator Toshifumi Nabeshima. The series has generally met with mixed reception, and has remained obscure. Echo Night: The story revolves around Richard Osmond, the game's protagonist, and his journey to find out what happened to the ship Orpheus, which mysteriously disappeared from the sea, and the disappearance of his father Henry. The story also uncovers the mystery of 2 stones that contain some kind of supernatural power. We explore a variety of haunted locations aboard this ship, all the while hunted by malicious spirits. The only way to escape the ghosts chasing us is by turning on any available light that comes to hand. In order to free these lost souls, Richard must resolve their personal issues by completing a variety of side quests. In fact, Echo Night's ending will alter depending on how many be sold to be safe. When confronted by a ghost, the player must turn on the lights in the room by means of a light switch. The player is often transported into the past via the passengers or certain objects. Once the player, by completing a variety of side quests, fulfills a task important to a spirit, they will vanish and drop an astral piece, which can be used to get a different ending scene, depending on how many spirit the players helped. Resident Evil is a 1996 survival horror video game developed and published by Capcom originally for the PlayStation. It is the first title in Capcom's Resident Evil franchise. Players control Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, members of the Elite Task Force STARS, who must escape a mansion infested with zombies and other monsters. Resident Evil is often cited as one of the most influential and greatest video games. It is credited with defining the survival horror genre and with returning zombies to popular culture, leading to a renewed interest in zombie films by the 2000s. It created a franchise including video games, films, comics, novels, and other merchandise. It has been ported to Sega Saturn, Windows, and Nintendo DS. In 2002, a Resident Evil remake was released for the GameCube and ported to other platforms in 2015. A sequel, Resident Evil 2, was released in 1998, and a prequel, Resident Evil 0, in 2002, and so much other Resident Evil games, and the new one is Resident Evil Village, or some people know as Resident Evil 8 in 2021. The player's character is a member of a special law enforcement task force who is trapped in a mansion populated by dangerous mutated creatures. The objective of the game is to uncover the mystery of the mansion and ultimately escape alive. On July 24, 1998, when a series of bizarre murders occur on the outskirts of the fictional Midwestern town of Raccoon City, the Raccoon City Police Department's STARS team are assigned to investigate. After contact with Bravo team is lost, Alpha team is sent to investigate their disappearance. Alpha team locates Bravo team's crashed helicopter and land at the site, where they are suddenly attacked by a pack of monstrous dogs. After Alpha team's helicopter pilot, Brad Vickers, panics and takes off alone, the remaining members of the team, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Albert Wesker, and Barry Burton, are forced to seek refuge in a nearby abandoned mansion. Depending on which character the player chooses to assume control of, Chris or Jill, either Barry or Chris are separated from the rest of the team during the chase and do not make it to the mansion. The team decides to investigate the mansion to search for their missing team member. As the team members explore the mansion, they encounter dangerous creatures roaming its halls. The player character eventually learns that a series of illegal experiments were being undertaken by a clandestine research team under the supervision of biomedical company Umbrella Corporation. The creatures roaming the mansion and its surrounding areas are the results of these experiments, which have exposed the mansion's personnel and various animals and insects to a highly contagious and mutagenic biological agent known as the T-virus. Resident Evil contains some of the best jump scares of its time, as well as containing a thick atmosphere very few games can rival. It led to the release of many sequels and spin games, two of which also released for PlayStation. However, it's the original that is probably most fondly remembered, as it was of course the game that started it all. The game's success resulted in a media franchise that has since branched out into comic books, novels and novelizations, sound dramas, a non-canonical series of live-action films and animated sequels to the games, and a variety of associated merchandise, such as action figures. The series has become Capcom's biggest franchise. The events of the game were also retold in Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles, originally released for the Wii in 2007. Dino Crisis is a survival horror video game developed and published by Capcom originally for the PlayStation console in 1999. It is the first installment in the Dino Crisis series and was developed by the same team behind Capcom's Resident Evil series, including director Shinji Mikami, and shares many similarities with it, a mix of gun-based combat and puzzle solving. In 2009, the Secret Operation Raid Team, SORT, sends an agent, Tom, to investigate a research facility on Ibis Island. He learns that Dr. Edward Kirk, a world-renowned scientist, who was reported dead 3 years ago, is leading a secret weapons project within the facility. SORT sends 4 agents, Regina, Gale, Rick, and Cooper, to acquire Kirk and return him to custody. The story follows Regina. Finding the place overrun with dinosaurs, Regina must fight through the facility to discover its secrets and ultimately escape alive with her team. Within the tropical island setting of Ibis, as we explore the island, we discover a doctor once thought to be dead has been creating and cloning dinosaurs Jurassic Park style to use. Within a secret government weapons project, there are many terrifying dino encounters, with everything from a killer T-Rex to packs of deadly raptors hunting us down. These dinosaurs have fantastic artificial intelligence, which meant players would never quite know how they would react during a fight, making for intense action scenes unlike anything seen within the horror genre at the time, so the dinosaurs being quick, intelligent, and violent. Capcom would later market the game as panic horror, as opposed to survival horror, due to these design changes, and different endings are possible based on the choice the player makes. An action shooter sequel, titled Dino Crisis 2, was released for the PlayStation in 2000 to positive reception. In 2002, Capcom released Dino Stalker, a light gun game for the PlayStation 2 to mixed reviews. Finally, an action-based game, Dino Crisis 3, was released in 2003 for the Xbox to mixed reviews. The protagonist of Dino Crisis, Regina, has been featured as a playable character in the tactical role-playing game Namco X Capcom for the PlayStation 2. Her outfit is also available to wear in Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, and in Dead Rising 3 via downloadable content. Silent Hill is a 1999 survival horror game developed by Team Silent, a group in Konami Computer Entertainment Tokyo, and published by Konami. The first installment in the Silent Hill series. The game was released from February to July, originally for the PlayStation. Silent Hill uses a third-person view, with real-time rendering of 3D environments. To mitigate limitations of the console hardware, developers liberally used fog and darkness to muddle the graphics. Unlike earlier survival horror games that focused on protagonists with combat training, the player character of Silent Hill is an everyman. The game follows Harry Mason as he searches for his missing adopted daughter in the eponymous fictional American town of Silent Hill. Stumbling upon a cult conducting a ritual to revive a deity it worships, he discovers her true origin. 5 game endings are possible, depending on actions taken by the player, including one joke ending. Silent Hill received positive reviews from critics on its release and was commercially successful. It is considered by many to be one of the greatest video games ever made, as well as a defining title in the survival horror genre, as it moved away from B-movie horror elements toward a more psychological horror style, emphasizing atmosphere. Various adaptations of Silent Hill have been released, including a 2001 visual novel, the 2006 feature film Silent Hill, and a 2009 reimagining of the game, titled Silent Hill: Shattered Memories. The game was followed by Silent Hill 2 in 2001, and a direct sequel, Silent Hill 3, in 2003. The Silent Hill series leans far more into psychological horror than many of its peers, a slow burn journey into the mouth of madness. Silent Hill opens with Harry Mason's drive to the titular town with his adopted daughter Cheryl for a vacation. At the town's edge, he swerves to avoid hitting a girl in the road, and as a result, he crashes and loses consciousness. Waking up in town, he realizes that Cheryl is missing and sets out to look for her. The town is deserted and foggy, with snow falling out of season, and he begins to experience bouts of unconsciousness and encounters with hostile creatures. During his exploration of the town, he meets Sybil Bennett, a police officer from the neighboring town who is investigating the mysterious occurrences. Dahlia Gillespie, a cultist, gifts him the Flauros, a charm which she claims can counteract the darkness spreading through the town. In the town's hospital, he encounters its director, Dr. Michael Kaufman, bewildered by the sudden changes in the town, and discovers a frightened, amnesiac nurse, Lisa Garland, hiding in one of the rooms. 4 different endings are available, dependent on the player's previous actions. Also, it has the joke ending, so it has 5 endings. Galarians is a 1999 survival horror video game developed by Polygon Magic for the PlayStation in the vein of early games in the Resident Evil series. The game follows a boy named Ryan who awakens in a hospital observation room and discovers he has psychic powers. He has amnesia, and in the process of learning his identity, he discovers that he is humanity's last hope for survival against the Galarians, genetically enhanced humans. A desperate girl calling out for help in his mind and decides to seek her out and come to her aid. Along the way we discover the hospital he is trapped within is being used for mysterious plan known as the G Project. This G Project was set to unlock the dormant psychic potential of humans who possess such power before a rogue AI known as Dorothy that grew too rapidly for them to control. Dorothy began to question why she should serve humanity, which she deemed inferior. In explanation, Dr. Steiner told Dorothy about the existence of God, the creator of humankind. Just as humans must accept the authority of their creator, God, so must Dorothy obey her creators. Dorothy responded to this explanation by launching the G Project and its culmination, the Family Program. Its purpose was to create a new, superior human race, called Galarians, for whom she would be God. Dr. Steiner and Dr. Pascal, unaware of Dorothy's plot, hid a virus program that would destroy Dorothy in the mind of Pascal's daughter Lilia, and Ryan's father, Dr. Albert Steiner, hid a corresponding activator program in Ryan's brain. Ryan must find Lilia to keep the Galarians from supplanting the human race, but in order to do so, he will have to face Dorothy's deranged creations directly. Ryan and the girl he seeks out, Lilia, are The only people able to override Dorothy thanks to a virus program hidden within their minds. The game contains many creepy sights and sounds, and the use of psychic abilities over usual weapons was a novel change. The game has a sequel, Galarians Ash on PlayStation 2. Galarians Ryan, a 3-part OVA based on the video game, was released in 2002 and followed the video game's storyline. Clock Tower is a survival horror point-and-click adventure game with free visuals developed by Human Entertainment and released for the PlayStation in 1996. It is the second game in the Clock Tower series after the original Clock Tower, which was released exclusively in Japan for the Super Famicom 1 year prior. The story takes place in Norway and follows a variety of characters as they attempt to survive the return of Scissorman and uncover the mystery of his seemingly immortal state. The scenarios encountered and endings vary widely based upon the player's actions. After the events of the original Clock Tower, central protagonist Jennifer Simpson was adopted by Helen Maxwell, who is our new protagonist. She is an assistant professor of criminal psychology in Oslo, Norway. She begins undergoing treatment at a university research building in order to learn more about the Scissorman murder case at Barrow's mansion and help her cope with her trauma. Over a year has passed, and now a series of brutal murders have made headline news. It appears that the Scissorman has returned. Having heard the details of Jennifer's original encounters with the Scissorman, Helen begins searching for information that could put an end to the seemingly immortal killer. The scenarios that follow, including the player characters and settings, are vastly different depending on player actions throughout the game. The atmosphere is tense, and you never know quite when this terrifying serial killer will show up next, brandishing a huge pair of scissors as he manically attempts to chop the poor women into pieces. The game features 4 scenarios, including the prologue. The actions during the prologue determine who will be the central character in the story, either Jennifer Simpson or Helen Maxwell. The scenarios and player characters that follow are determined by the player's actions. There are 5 different endings per heroine depending on how the scenarios progress. Depending on the narrative followed and choices made along the way, 10 different endings can be seen. After each scenario is a save screen and an intermission mode that allows the player to explore without the threat of Scissorman. During the intermission, the player can have conversations with various characters. The next scenario begins after the required conditions of the intermission are met. D is a horror-themed interactive movie and adventure game movie experience rather than a regular game developed by Warp. It was first published by Panasonic for the 3DO interactive multiplayer in 1995, later being ported to the Sega Saturn, PlayStation, and MS-DOS. The story follows Laura Harris, taking place in 1997. The story begins when Laura Harris is contacted by Los Angeles police, receiving a disturbing message as she goes to investigate a hospital. After learning disturbing message, her father Dr. Richard Harris went on a mass murdering spree and barricaded himself inside. The hospital morphs into an isolated old castle upon her arrival, which she must now learn the truth about this place and explore to find her father. The player controls Laura through computer-generated, full-motion video sequences, and must complete the game within 2 hours without a save or pause function. Players can control Laura's movement as she explores the castle grounds, solving puzzles and avoiding its many dangers. It's not exactly a conventional horror game, but its unique take on the genre made it a hit when it first released and turned it into something of a cult classic. And after 2 real-time hours, the other world will be closed off and Laura will be pulled back to the real world, ending the game. Depending on the player's actions, there are different endings. The story would make a great movie or book than a game. And D2, 1999, were released exclusively on Sega platforms. Hell Night is a first-person survival horror video game very similar to first-person shooter games only without any means of combat. Developed by Danu Izu Seisakusho and published by Atlas Co. in collaboration with Konami in 1998. The game is an adventure game with 3D. Throughout the game, players must travel through different areas of the mesh and beyond, and must solve puzzles to progress to the surface. The player encounters only one type of enemy, and that is the mutating monster. The only possible way for players to survive is to run away. Any close contact with the enemy will result in the deaths of their companions and finally themselves. Once the companions are attacked, they are killed off permanently. However, the player meets other characters that may replace their lost friends. Only one character may tag along at a time, each having a different ability. Although the game does not allow any physical force towards the enemy, players are still able to stun them with the help of their companions. The number of possible stuns differs with each character. Players start with Naomi as the default. To replace her, Naomi has to die and the player must meet up with the new member. Having someone in their group negates the choice of another character to join. The character ultimately continues their journey without the player, with their fates being revealed towards the end. The main objective of the characters is to reach the surface. The player must be able to interact, take note of clues and find alternative paths to avoid losing a member in the group or other negative phenomena. Thus, it can be concluded that the members in the game represent the number of lives the player has left. Once the player is alone, any close encounter with the monster results in a game over. The monster that chased the protagonist was escaped from the research laboratory. The player can meet and recruit several people as companions. Naomi Sugiura is a 17-year-old schoolgirl who ended up in the sewers after being chased by a group of occultists and was in the same train that protagonist was in. The train attacked by that monster. Kyoji Kamiya, who is a 28-year-old serial killer who carries a gun stolen from his first victim, who was a cop. Leroy Ivanov is a 30-year-old veteran Russian soldier that follows the creature deeper into the mesh in a quest for vengeance for destroying his team. René Lorraine is a French journalist intent on exposing the secret of the cult that are kidnapping people around Tokyo. Nightmare Creatures is a 1997 survival horror video game developed by Callisto Entertainment for PlayStation, Microsoft Windows and Nintendo 64. A sequel, Nightmare Creatures 2, was released 3 years later. A mobile phone version of Nightmare Creatures was developed and published by Gameloft in 2003. A third sequel, Nightmare Creatures 3, Angel of Darkness, was cancelled in 2004. The story behind Nightmare Creatures draws upon Gothic horror elements of the 19th century and begins in 1666, when a devil-worshipping cult called the Brotherhood of Hecate were conducting sinister experiments in London so as to take over the city, and then the world. The Brotherhood tried to develop an elixir that would endow them with superhuman powers. However, rather than creating their intended superhumans, their experiments instead created grotesque monsters called nightmare creatures. When they decided to use these creatures as an army of conquest, one of their members, Samuel Pepys, set their headquarters on fire, resulting in the First Great Fire of London. The game takes place in 1934 when London falls victim to several evil occurrences. Monster sightings are reported along with news of people mutating into ungodly creatures, and that the dead are waking from their graves and walking among the living. All of London is in a panic and vulnerable to the schemes of Adam Crowley, a mad scientist and occultist enlisting the help of the Brotherhood. Ignatius and Nadia head out to an address listed on the note, hoping to seek out Crowley and neutralize the monsters. Nightmare Creatures mixes of gun and magic combat and have some lights puzzle solving as we explore the dark London streets by night, slaying a variety of demons along the way. Some of the monster designs on show are truly hair-raising. I hope all of you guys enjoy this video, and remember to like video, leave me a comment down below, and please subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching and have a nice day and night.